I don't remember what the joke was supposed to be anymore. I remember the gas station though, the way the air smelled like hot rubber and burnt coffee. My brother had been filming something on his phone. My dad told me to run inside and grab napkins. When I came back out, the car was already rolling. They were laughing. My sister leaned out the window and shouted, "Let's see if he can find his way home." They didn't speed off. That would have made it dramatic. Instead, they drove away casually, like I'd catch up in a second, like I was somehow part of the joke. I stood there longer than I want to admit, waiting for them to circle back. They didn't. At first I was embarrassed more than scared. I was 19, technically an adult, old enough that something like this shouldn't have shaken me. But this wasn't the first time I'd been the punchline. It was just the first time the punchline had weight. My family liked testing how far they could push me. Hide my shoes. Change the Wi-Fi password. Leave me out of plans and call me sensitive when I noticed. That day something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. I went back inside and asked the cashier if there was a bus route nearby. I didn't call them. Not to yell. Not to demand they turn around. Instead, I called my old high school history teacher, Mr. Caldwell. He answered on the second ring. By the time my family realized I wasn't playing along anymore, I was already on a bus heading in the opposite direction of home. At first they texted, then they called. When I didn't answer, they joked about it in the family group chat. "Okay, drama king, you proved your point." But I wasn't proving anything. I just didn't go back. I stayed with Mr. Caldwell for a week. I got a job washing dishes at a diner. I picked up extra shifts and applied for community college classes I'd once postponed. Because my father said I'd never stick with anything anyway. It wasn't revenge. I didn't make speeches about self-respect. I simply stopped participating in their version of me. For a few months they tried reaching out, then less often. Then holidays passed quietly. My mother sent one birthday card with no return address. I never replied. 15 years is enough time to build something solid if you're careful. I finished school, moved cities, and built a career in compliance consulting. There's a strange irony in that. My job is identifying where systems fail people and making sure companies don't cut corners. I live a quiet life now. Structured. Predictable. That's why the 107 missed calls unsettled me. My phone had been on silent during a board meeting. When I stepped outside and checked it, the notifications stacked on the screen like a glitch. Unknown numbers. Dozens of them, all with variations of the same area code I grew up with. There was one voicemail. It was my mother, Laura. But she didn't sound amused this time. She sounded controlled. Tight. "Evan, it's important. It's about your father." I waited a full day before listening again. Then I asked a colleague who owed me a favor to run a background check. It took less than 24 hours to understand what was happening. My father, Daniel, was under investigation for financial misconduct tied to a small contracting business. He'd started 5 years earlier. There were loans, misreported assets, frozen accounts, and my name was still attached to an old joint account he'd opened when I was 17, an account I'd completely forgotten existed. They didn't miss me. They needed me. They needed my documentation to prove I hadn't been involved or worse, that I had unknowingly authorized something. Without my statement, the investigation could widen. That was the reason for the 107 calls. Not grief, not reconciliation, urgency. I didn't call them back. Instead, I contacted an attorney. The first time we all appeared in the same room again was in a neutral conference space, with beige walls and a digital clock that ticked a little too loudly. My parents looked older, smaller. My brother, Mason, avoided eye contact. My sister, Chloe, tried to smile like we were meeting at a family reunion. No one mentioned the gas station. My father started explaining immediately. It's just paperwork. They're blowing this out of proportion. We just need you to confirm you weren't involved. Simple. Simple. The way it had been simple to drive away. My attorney did most of the talking. Calm, precise. For the first time in my life, there were rules in the room. If they interrupted, they were redirected. If they tried to shift the conversation toward emotion, it was brought back to documentation. There's something surreal about watching your childhood dynamic dissolve under fluorescent lighting. They couldn't joke their way through this. They couldn't call me dramatic. The power wasn't loud. It was procedural. I agreed to provide a formal statement confirming I had no involvement and no prior knowledge of their finances. I agreed to cooperate with investigators to protect myself. I did not agree to anything beyond that. No shared accounts, no financial help, no promises to reconnect. At one point, my mother spoke softly. We were young back then. We didn't realize how much it hurt you. I looked at her steadily. You realized enough to laugh. Silence settled across the room after that. Months later, the investigation concluded. My father avoided criminal charges but paid significant penalties. His business collapsed soon after. They sent one final message thanking me for helping the family. I didn't reply. I didn't block them either. Their numbers are still saved in my phone, permanently silenced. Sometimes I scroll back to the screenshot I took that day. 107 missed calls. It doesn't make me angry anymore. It reminds me of something simple. Once, they drove away expecting I'd chase after them. 15 years later, they were the ones trying to close the distance. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. I just protected the life I built and quietly went back to living it.